This week's episode of The Clear Out was recorded on the 9th of November 2021 at home in Wicklow. And the theme of this week's episode is bridges. That's right, bridges. Bridges in the physical sense and bridges in the metaphorical sense. I speak about how I have always had a soft spot for bridges, how they've always appealed to me. And I admire them as physical structures of design and engineering, but I also like them because of what they represent metaphorically. They help us get somewhere else. They help us get over something difficult. They help us traverse something that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. And that is very much the nature of this week's episode. And I talk about how we have bridges to many different things in our lives and how we build bridges to transcend difficult experiences and trauma and things we'd rather leave behind. I conclude this week's episode with a bit of a chat about great movie scenes set on bridges and how often they're used to illustrate key moments of the story or the plot, and also can be the setting for great action sequences. So that's what's coming up. I'll see you there. Come across the bridge and join me. Cheers.
Ooh, not gonna change my mind, leaving the dream behind.
Hi, my name is Dara and you're listening to The Clear Out. Welcome to this day. Welcome to this moment. Just have a little check-in with yourself there. How are you? Have you asked yourself that recently? How are you? Or to yourself, how am I? Yeah, how am I? Have a little check there. See where the head's at. Where's the emotional space? What's the read? What's the physical space like? How's the alignment? Not just your physical, spinal, skeletal, muscular alignment, but your psychological alignment. Don't go there. Just don't ask. I don't want to look. I don't want to know. It's easier to turn away. It's too confronting. That may be the case, but still and all, just do it. Just check in there. And the emotional. It's been an emotional roller coaster. I've been up, I've been down, I've been all around. I've even done a loop-de-loop. And I tell you, my stomach is still somewhere high up there. The emotional roller coaster. So are your emotions in your stomach? Is that what you're suggesting? I suppose so. I didn't really think that one through. Well, they certainly feel like they're in my tummy. What's a tummy? That's a bit of a childish world for the stomach. Just leave me alone, will you? Anyway, there you go. So I want to try and keep today's episode short-ish. Famous last words. No, I'm on the clock. Just been a busy day with a few tradesmen. Tradies, as the Aussies like to call them. Bloody tradies. Yeah, had a couple of tradesmen in, electricians. I'm waiting for the plumber. A little bit of drama going on. My mother is getting some medical attention at the moment, so we're keeping an eye on that situation. So a lot of things, a lot of distractions. So I'm on the clock. I need to go and give my dad a spin to the shops for his messages. Has to get that paper, has to get that Sudoku, has to get the tobacco. And I need to get my daughter from school as well. So just the way it's worked out, I am on the clock, and I'm going to try to keep this to about an hour or just over an hour. The last time I tried to do this, I completely messed it up, and I ended up missing my hair appointment. I was going down for my weekly hair wash and perm, and I was recording the podcast and I ran over and I missed my appointment, and I rang the girls too late. I rang them too late. I got to the salon and they were gone, and I eventually got them on the phone later and they're like, we waited for you and you didn't show. Now, that's only a partially true story. In fact, I was going to call the barber and I ran over. He did wait. I didn't ring him until it was too late, but he squeezed me in. I'll squeeze you in, son. He squeezed me in the next morning, so I went back early and got the hair scalped. And that was the previous haircut. I just had a haircut last week and got scalped again, and that'll be my last one before Christmas. So next one will be the Christmas cut. Very important, the Christmas haircut. You want to look right for those Christmas Day photos. You want to look right, when Santa tiptoes into your room and just checks out your wife, makes sure it's all good, and then drops the prezzies at the end of the bed, or wherever. Yeah, so you want him to walk away going, oh, nice haircut. It doesn't look like his hair was cut with a ho, ho, ho. That's brutal. That is brutal. That's pure dad joke territory. As I've often said to friends who accuse me of having a penchant for dad jokes, that's true. I'm not going to deny that, and that has been the case since long before I became a father. Here's another nice one that I like. I'll just throw it in while we're on the topic. What's brown and sticky? A stick. Boom, boom. I'm here all week. So there you go. Dad jokes. Now, today, and this is me. Now I'm setting out on the tightrope. Now I'm stepping out on the high wire with my soft shoes. Those shoes that allow you to fully flex the sole of your foot, to feel that contact. I'm stepping out over the circus ring that's far below. No safety net, just gonna walk on out there and try to get to the other side. And that's actually the perfect lead in to today's topic, because I want to talk about bridges. And that's not my pet name for the actor Jeff Bridges or his brother Beau, or their father Lloyd. Interesting to see Lloyd Bridges as a young man, like as the young kind of punk, the young hothead punk cowboy in High Noon, which is Fred Zinnemann, isn't it? That's going back a while now. I think High Noon, is it 51? I'm not sure. That's the great black and white Western where Gary Cooper's stoic sheriff knows there are bad men coming to town gunning for him. Some guy he put in prison has got out and is coming looking for revenge. And Gary Cooper's character has the whole day to kind of wait for the train to come in and to seek help from the locals, who one after the other turn him down and go, no. And he's just got married. I think if I remember this correctly, I haven't watched it recently, but he's just got married to a very young and beautiful Grace Kelly, who is, her character in the movie is she a Quaker and therefore a pacifist. So she's saying, just leave the townsfolk, just go. And they do actually set out on that journey, and then he turns back and goes, no, I can't, I've got to face this. But Lloyd Bridges, father of Jeff and Beau, he's like, I think he's the deputy. But it's just interesting to think like he was playing a young punk, a young kind of attitudinal punk cowboy way back when, long before a young Jeff Bridges was essaying similar kind of roles in his early career. And now Jeff Bridges is, he's a grand old dog. I don't know what age he is. Has he cracked 70 yet? Certainly, he was in a movie a few years ago, the name of which is going to escape me. Oh dear, what's the name of that movie? A real good modern Western, basically. And I think he's a Texan peacekeeper, sheriff, and he's trying to track down these bank robbers. And the bank robbers are played by Chris Pine and Ben Foster as brothers who, they're trying to rob banks to pay off their mortgage. Their house has been repossessed, or is being threatened with repossession, and they're trying to pay it off. It's a great show. What the hell is the name of that movie? Oh man, it's gonna drive me mad. Let me see. Ding dong dong. Written by another name I can't remember. This is the price you pay for zero research. The price you pay for shooting from the hip. But the point I was going to make was Jeff Bridges in that movie is he looked like Chris Christopherson. Now, if you think about that, I mean, Jeff Bridges was very much not a Chris Christopherson lookalike, but suddenly cropping up in this movie from a few years ago, and I am on the verge now of naming that movie. He really was. He was a bit of a dead ringer for Chris Christopherson, I thought. Hell or High Water, and it's from 5 years ago. Hell or High Water. And that movie was written by the same guy who wrote Sicario. Taylor Sheridan. Yeah, Taylor Sheridan was the writer who wrote Sicario. And David Mackenzie was the director. But yeah, Jeff, suddenly in that movie, rocks up looking very grizzled. So there you go. Evolution. Family evolution. Lloyd didn't really age that way. He turned up in the Airplane movies in the 70s then. He would have been younger than Jeff is now. Okay, total tangent. So that was I'm going from one Bridges to other Bridges. Actual Bridges. And the tightrope, the high wire act, crossing from one place to another, like that French street performer who walked across the Twin Towers back in the day. Sort of an extraordinary act of ego, a flex, as they would say in the popular term of the moment. What a flex. I can't remember that guy's name. We had a couple of movies about him a few years ago, didn't we? Yes. The bridge. How to get from one side to another. And we get the expression, build a bridge and get over it. And that is usually dispensed in a dismissive, mocking way. Someone who can't let go of an issue or something that's bothering them, some gripe that is tormenting them, and they're told in very stark terms, build a bridge and get over it. Now, that's not what bridges symbolise to me. Me, in my little idealistic way, my idealistic leaning. Bridges, to me, represent something altogether more hopeful and optimistic and conciliatory. A bridge to get you over something difficult. A bridge to bring people together, to get from one place to another, to help you reach something. So if it was me, I'd be like, build a bridge and come towards me, my friend. And this is the contradiction. It's not like I'm out there ever saying a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. There's not one bit of me that believes that. But bridges have always sort of captivated me somewhat. Now, I'm not a bridge nerd. I'm not going to start, dropping names of designers, engineers, architects, builders. I don't even have a long list of my favourite bridges in the world. It's not that type of interest. If you were to tell me, oh, well, the Golden Gate Bridge took so many years to build and this many, guys died building it, or the Brooklyn Bridge is this, or, whatever, all the bridges down the Liffey River in Dublin. I couldn't name all of them, I'll tell you that for a start. I can name quite a few of them, but not all of them. And I've crossed quite a few of them over the years. But it's not that. For me, the history of the building of a bridge, the history of its design, the history of the overcoming of engineering obstacles, regardless of the scale of the bridge, I can admire that. I can go, wow, like any great feat of architecture or building, you can quantify it and be impressed. This many man hours, this much steel, this much concrete, this much money, this much time, all of that, you can go, okay, that's quite interesting. But ultimately, to me, being honest, there's no mystery. There's no mystery in that story, and I'm not going to sit down and watch a documentary about that kind of thing. Where I'm interested in bridges, I suppose it's just an instant aesthetic and emotional response. And so visually, I find them very pleasing most of the time, and they can be quite surprising depending on where you find them. Like in the bathroom. No, there's no bridge in my bathroom. I had something pop into my head then about like dental devices or dental structures one might put in one's mouth to like a brace. Isn't there a bridge? Isn't that something you can have in your teeth in some dental construction? In that case, there might have been a bridge in your bathroom if that's where you left that kind of thing. But no, bridges to me have always been, they've always sparked some idealistic tremor of recognition or stimulus in me, and that is really where I go in my mind. My wife would probably love to tell you the story of how the first and only time we were in San Francisco. We went there for a holiday in 2008 and spent a lovely week and a half with old friends there, and we went to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge, and I just vanished. It wasn't a moment we shared, because I just walked on ahead, just taking photographs and marveling at this amazing bridge. So there you go. That seems to always come up anytime the San Francisco holiday gets mentioned. There he went with his camera, snap, snap, snap. But yeah, bridges. I think they, symbolically, I was just thinking about it earlier before I started recording. If we go back to that idea of a bridge is helping you get over something, then I start to think about it, and I start to place it into a wellness context. And I think just take a moment there and think about the areas of activity and the areas of interest in your life, and imagine a bridge leading from you to that area, leading from you to that discipline, to that area of activity, to that group of people, to that area of expression, to that area of career, of work, of sport, to the strongest or most meaningful or most fulfilling relationships in your life, and then ask yourself, why did you build a bridge to those areas? Why did you build a bridge to those people? Why did you build a bridge to that sport or that activity or that interest? What is it that led you there? What is it that, and here's the point, like here's the kind of the undercurrent of wellness, or the undercurrent of personal fortitude, or personal edification, personal rebuilding. What did you transcend or traverse or get over? Or what did you wish to get over to get to that place? So I was thinking to give you like an example of what I'm talking about. If I think that karate primarily, and Tai Chi secondarily, some other smatterings of exposure to other martial arts over the years, if that's been a big part of my life and a big part of my personal regime and personal wellness, and part of different, a very key part of certain communities and certain individuals that I've been involved with for almost 30 years now, if I visualize that in the way I'm describing and go, okay, so I built a bridge to karate, or I built a bridge out of karate, from karate, what was I trying to get over? And so, I can say, and I'm sure I've referred to this in previous episodes where I've talked a bit about my karate experiences, or my karate life, or my or my karate sort of philosophy. But fundamentally, I probably was building a bridge to get over fear. And I certainly, and I don't think I'm particularly exceptional in this way. I was certainly afraid of bullies when I was a kid, and I wasn't. I had skirmishes, let's call them, brief exposure to bullies, low level stuff, nothing too crazy. I never felt, oh my God, I'm a bullied kid. I was always lucky. I had friends, and for me, and I've observed this as a teacher as well over the years, you just need one. You just need one pal. That's it. That's insulation. One friend is sufficient. 2, 3, you're absolutely laughing. But one buddy, one pal, that's all you need. Someone that you go, I've got your back. You can have a laugh. It's a validation, isn't it? And I suppose that's why bullies are very good at sniffing out, kids who are lonely, kids who have difficulty making friends, kids who, perhaps there's social anxiety. Who knows? I mean, there could be a million different reasons why a young person isolates themselves or feels unable to connect with others. And certainly when I was growing up, we didn't have the sort of the conversations or the research, perhaps, or the sort of the ready access to the full spectrum of diagnoses of, and again, I struggle to find the right vocabulary here, but the diagnoses of different brain orientations, from whatever, if we're talking about the autistic spectrum and things like autism or Asperger's or whatever, and then you have, of course, ADHD and things like that. Those, whether or not those, I'm presuming those terms existed, but they weren't kind of part of the common parlance. They weren't just readily accessible everyday language, which in many ways I feel they have become now. So it's interesting that if you think about it, if we don't have the language, that's when we struggle to identify. When we don't have the language, we struggle to differentiate, and it means that there's a lack of sophistication in how we see people. There's a lack of sophistication and nuance in how we understand people. And if we stay in this area for a little while longer and think about the conversations that have been running for a few years now around gender and identity connected to gender, and how I've started to see in recent times, people will sign off on their emails, or they'll have it as part of their social media profiles, their chosen pronouns. So, she, her, hers, or he, his, that kind of thing, just to clarify. Yeah, I identify as my birth gender, as my biological gender. Some people will put the they, theirs, they, their, theirs. So that is definitely an area of the language opens up, and certainly many people have felt quite threatened by that. It threatens a certain conservative orthodoxy of language use and of thinking around gender, the sort of binary heteronormative frame. And then when you introduce, oh, well, this is my son Jeffrey, but he identifies as a girl, and he wants to become a Jessica, not a Jeffrey, and would prefer to be referred to as she. And that is confronting territory for some people, but personally I welcome it. I welcome people being given freedom to identify themselves how they wish, to express themselves, and to be understood in a way of their choosing. Now, I'm not quite so far down the road to be, rushing in legislation to make things, I suppose, legislation that would make this a requirement, or a legislation that would mean you could be punished for failing to acknowledge this. I think it's an evolution. I think it's a cultural evolution as well as so it's a social cultural revolution or evolution, and it's a linguistic evolution as well. And evolution isn't an overnight thing. So, Charles Darwin wasn't on that island in the Galapagos going, today I've seen an animal do this. Oh, one day later, overnight adaptation. Now this bird has an extra beak, or longer wings, or whatever. It's over huge periods of time that these adaptations happen. And I mean, it's interesting to think that maybe bigger picture, the idea that the patience of the time frame of evolution and the time frame of evolutionary adaptation, and how we can look at that through a historic lens or a biological lens and go, oh yeah, of course that would take hundreds or thousands of years. But in this digital age and the age of instant online gratification for any number of needs and incessant consumption of content, the illusion of incessant connection via the various social media spaces, platforms, the 24/7 deluge of notification. If you're someone who wishes to spend all your time on the internet, all your time online, devouring every which thing, and certainly this seems to have been a phenomenon that has only been exacerbated by the pandemic. And certainly anecdotally, talking to some friends around the area of vaccination and the anti-vax position, there's a lot of people who have, in my opinion, gotten themselves really freaked out and had their fears massively exacerbated by the amount of content they've been consuming online. I had an old friend of mine tell me she'd be sitting up at night till 4 a.m, just sitting up online, consuming masses of opinion around the sort of anti-vax position, and that's where she's come down. And that's a choice. I'm not judging her for it, but the point I'm trying to make is, have we become so accustomed to instant opinion and instant feedback and instant answers and instant response, that the whole idea of something happening gradually, carefully, organically, has that just become anathema to us? Is that just something that is really alien to us? So with the idea of the pronouns debate and gender and identity, are we just like so impatient that we can't accommodate the thinking space, the reflecting space, the psychological and emotional space to let things happen? Now, I know some schools have, I'm sure, I read an article at some point in the last year, since I've been back in Ireland, a school in Greystones, I think, in County Wicklow, was saying from this academic year, so starting September just gone, that boy students could wear the female uniform if they chose to, without any problem, and likewise for the female students, if they wanted to wear the male version of the school uniform, they could. And I just thought, fantastic. I just thought, yeah, great. Just start normalizing the choice. Just start, the more we can kind of get into normalizing that expression or understanding of identity and gender, I think the more we can just get beyond it to a point of, you're just a human. You're a human with needs. You're a human with the same needs as anybody else. The same, emotional needs, the same physical needs, and how you identify is it's your affair. And unless we're talking about actual, physical transitioning, that's a larger, more complicated conversation, of course. But I don't know. I just think, if we go back to the idea of bridges, as far as I'm concerned, like that school, they were, building a bridge towards inclusivity, building the bridge towards tolerance, and building a bridge towards, the normalization of those things, the normalization of tolerance and inclusivity and non-judgment. And you're not going to tell me that that's bad. You're not going to tell me that those are bad things for kids. And let's remind ourselves that, if you're a kid today, you've got access to everything. I don't care what you do as a parent. I don't care what parental controls you impose in your own home, or who you let have devices or not. There's only so much you can do. Kids can get access to whatever the hell they want, in terms of if they're curious about something, or if they want access to, videos, information, whatever, about who they are or what they can be or what they aren't and what they shouldn't be. I mean, again, I'm just throwing the should word in there to be devil's advocate. The online world is a whole other world, and that can be very scary terrain for concerned parents. My own feeling is, my daughter's only 8, so she's, I tell you what she's doing. Did I mention this last week? She likes to sit on YouTube Kids and watch people make things out of Lego. Or one she was showing me the other day, there was some young woman repairing toys, like soft toys, and repurposing them, or converting them into other animals. And my wife is very concerned that some of these videos our daughter looks at involve product placement, and of course there's like subliminal, or maybe not so sub, maybe just liminal. I don't even know what liminal means. Doesn't liminal refer to spaces? Okay, showing my again my lack of research. But listen, it's off the cuff. I'm on the high wire here, so I'm just shooting from the hip. my wife would be concerned that there are subliminal or otherwise overt messages around consumerism and product placement and planting those very sinister seeds of consumption and desire for products. And I guess I'm a completely irresponsible father in that I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of throw my eye over my daughter's shoulder and they seem innocuous enough. But we'll wait and see. So I think what I was going to say is, I think, like, my feeling is kids are very good at sort of, I think they're very good at sort of self-policing, and they're very good at, they're much better than we think at seeing something for what it is. And they're very good at, I think they're very good at switching off from something that doesn't feel, real or stops being fun. I think it's a pretty straightforward reaction. Now, I know there are other things out there that are a bit more sinister and covert and manipulative. I referred to something that I'd been put onto by one of my friends several episodes ago. But largely speaking, I think kids, they're, speaking of evolution, like, kids adapt with the times. So, my daughter, her mind isn't being blown by technology. It's not being blown by the things she's consuming online in a way that someone of my generation would have been. So if you bump me back almost 40 years to when I was 8 and someone dropped a load of devices, smartphones and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and whatever else, like even video calling and Zoom and Google Meet or whatever, I mean, my head would have fallen off. It would have been more than my little brain could have contained. I'll tell you what I got for a present when I was 8. There were friends visiting from Dublin, and there was a massive snow in, I remember, huge snowfall. That was winter of 82 here in Ireland. But we managed to get into the local town, and I was given a little tiny printing set. So like two sheets of rubber letters that you'd have to kind of detach and then dip in your ink pad, and then you could kind of print out sentences, type out sentences. That was the extent of the technology. That was my technological revolution. Oh my God, I don't have to use a pencil. This is amazing. I mean, I can still remember that feeling of like, this is really cool stuff. Now, by the way, my daughter also gets stuff like that and really likes it. In fact, she got a lovely present in the post just yesterday from one of my aunts. A tie-dye kit. And I saw it come in, I was like, oh God. My daughter was delighted, and she immediately sort of unpacked the box and, laid it all out on the wrong table. She has her own table, but her table is covered in stuff. So then she comes over to sort of the main, living room, dining area table, which is sort of designated for meals. Although I have one corner, I have a little tiny workstation down one end of it. But she just sprawled the lot out on that table and proceeded to do her homework. I was like, what the hell? You've got your own table that nobody else uses. Yeah, but it's full of my stuff. Yeah, well, move your stuff and make some room. This isn't how this is going to go down. So, little squabbles. And I was trying not to get cranky, but I don't think I succeeded. So then she was annoyed with me for being annoyed with her. And that's a funny dynamic, isn't it? I'm annoyed that you're annoyed. What? Can we not talk about the thing that I was originally annoyed about? No, don't be annoyed at me. Anyway, circular. A bridge is more like a semicircle or an arc. Okay? Part of a circle. So I'm just gonna wrench this back to the bridges concept. Le concept du bridge. What's bridge in French? Oh Lord, no, I had it and it's gone. Because there's French songs. There's the bridge in Avignon, and then there's the French film, isn't it? Les enfants du paradis. No, Is that what I'm thinking of? Do they hang around a bridge? Dearie me. Now I'm feeling very ashamed because I've been dabbling on social media with a bit of French again. I followed this great dude on Instagram who does these lovely French pronunciation videos, and he looks like Viggo Mortensen, if you know that actor. He looks like Viggo Mortensen on heroin. So like a really, really skinny, emaciated version of Viggo Mortensen. But he does these beautiful pronunciation videos, and you can just see he just seems like a natural teacher, and he does this kind of sing-song thing, which is great. And so I've been having a look at his little pronunciation videos and enjoying myself. And of course, the word, I had it in my head and I dared not say it, but it's pont. P-O-N-T. Pont. Pont d'Avignon. Yes. So, the bridge. Why, what, who, when, how. The bridge to karate that I made and have sustained in my life, I had the fear of bullies. And so, me embracing that idea as I think I was 19 when I started karate. I was in university, and I'd always been interested in it. And of course, like anyone who grew up in the 80s, 70s, 80s, that revolution that happened in sort of Western culture via martial arts movies, and particularly via Bruce Lee, that had so many of us engaged in the fantasy of becoming martial arts masters, black belts in one form or another. So karate and kung fu were probably the most obvious candidates. And that led, later on to people like probably Chuck Norris is a Shotokan karate guy like me. My thumbs aren't quite as big, nor my chin quite so large. But, could be superficial similarities there otherwise. I'm not a born-again Christian, which I think Chuck is. Born again or not, he is a Christian, a man of faith. I put my faith in karate. So that's an example of, I built a bridge partially because I was always interested. There was something about kind of the esoteric Eastern mysticism aspect of the martial artist, that control, that mastery of emotion, somewhat enigmatic, the hidden power. All of that was very appealing from a sort of conceptual point of view. But of course there was a practical aspect to it, going, yeah, it'd be nice not to feel afraid. Or it'd be nice to go, if I do feel afraid, at least I know I've got some skills that may help me. So in a way, that was a negotiation of, with fear. And then coming to karate, I just found it absolutely addictive and seductive, and I just loved doing it. So that became the allure, the doing of it. And just practicing karate was its own reward. Now, I'm going to go for another bridge, and this bridge takes me to the water. Now, normally bridges take you over water, not into it, but I also had a fear of water when I was a kid. I was terrified of drowning, and I have mentioned this before, I'm sure. I certainly wrote about it in one of my blog posts. In fact, will I dare bring that up? I might, bear with me, I might bring that up now in a second. But I had a fear of water, so it's funny that over the years then I became very interested in sea swimming, open water swimming, and that has become a staple in my life. And I just, I reflected on it a couple of months ago, and it's going, right, this is gas. Like a kid who was terrified of bullies and being beaten up and pushed around and made feel afraid, and also a guy who was terrified of drowning and terrified of the water. And now, fundamentally, I'm someone who has really, in the most unimaginative way, countered those fears by becoming a sort of a lifelong practitioner of karate at a reasonably high level, and also someone who has become a very competent. I mean, that was. I'm damning myself with faint praise, but that is the truth. I am a competent sea swimmer. I'm not a legend. I'm not a superstar. I'm not, doing any massive distances, but I can get into that water in pretty rough conditions at very low temperatures, and and cope, and not only cope but thrive to a certain extent, and certainly really enjoy it. So there are two examples of my bridges. And where else would you build a bridge? So you think about think about areas where you've been proactive, the type of career you have pursued. Why that career? Why did you go there? What was the bridge that took you there? What were you trying to overcome? What were you trying to step over? So, I mean, if I go back to my desire, to act, I think that it was the desire to connect and the desire to express something, and then the desire of that expression to be received well. Now, in a sort of a psychology 101 way, and ticking one of the biggest cliches of all in relation to actors, that is, in the most basic terms, a quest for love and a quest for affirmation, a quest to be embraced, and the I suppose the expression aspect of it, that's the desire to sort of to reach in and present what's inside and go, look, this is what's in me. Do you like it? And, if you can't instantly draw a parallel to the podcast and the type of stuff that I've written on the blog for the last several years, then you're a bit thick. I mean, it is what it is. And I suppose what I've cultivated in myself, or what I've learned over the last these years of sort of putting myself in the public space, in a more without the veil, like with acting, of course, you have a character. The character gives you a license. The costume, the script, the lines, the mask, the makeup. I'm sorry, I said mask already, but you know what I mean. That's the cover. But the cover is like a portal through which you can enter and then access permission to present human experience, and that then becomes a discussion about, well, what is the actor doing? Is the actor always drawing on their own experience? Is the actor is it pure artifice? Is it pure fabrication? What is that facility to enter another person, to enter another character? And is the level of success connected to the person, like the personal, and the true lived experience or the true emotional life of the actor, and then their ability to channel that into the character? Is that the success, or is it pure technique? Is it pure methodology? Certainly the actors I find myself attracted to are the ones who make that emotional truth ring true with the greatest ease. And that, and it's funny, like someone like, say, Daniel Day-Lewis, who I'm a huge fan of, and I've always been a great admirer of his work. I find him just a captivating performer. And even though he goes full method, And I don't know to what extent he still does that, but historically, that's what he would do, total immersion in the character. But it's when I actually find him really attractive as an actor when he's accessing something very light and easy and warm, which I don't know if you necessarily associate those qualities with Daniel Day-Lewis, because often he brings an intensity to his roles. But there's one of my favourite sort of romantic scenes of his is quite an innocuous scene from Jim Sheridan's The Boxer. And he's just walking down the street in Belfast with an old flame played by Emily Watson. And they're just having a walk and a chat and they're flirting and that's it. And it just felt so real and effortless and natural and organic and honest. Absolutely lovely. Really fantastic. But anyway, I'm off the track, of course. But that then to go back again, like this bridge, I've committed to this bridge to make a bridge into this area of personal revelation, I suppose. And not revelation like, oh my God, I'm so amazing, I've discovered this about myself, let me tell you all about it. But more, opening up the, lifting the bonnet or, the hood in American English, to look into the engine and go, well, this is it. And I find that personally, I've continued to find it very beneficial, sometimes verging on therapeutic, sometimes cathartic. But yeah, I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy doing it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was potentially of use to other people. And certainly the response to that type of, that area of exploration, the response that I've had over the years has been consistently positive, from the blog to now the kind of, the extension of the blog that exists here in podcast form. So yeah. And also, I suppose the final one I'll talk about is look at the relationships that you take most from in your life. And those bridges then are often bridges away from relationships that haven't been good, or away from relationships that have caused you pain, or away from relationships that have negated you, or you can go the full whammy and go like relationships that have traumatized you. Of course, they can be extremely shaping relationships, but then hopefully if you extricate yourself from those relationships, you can build successful relationships elsewhere. So then it becomes it's like a network of bridges, isn't it? I feel very lucky that I've managed to cultivate friendships over the years in different areas of life that are of interest to me, and where I've found expression, where I've found validation, where I've found doors opening. So whether that's from the acting world or from the world of education, the world of karate, the world of sport, whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, they've all been very sort of sustaining, enriching experiences and dynamics and communities and networks in my life, and continue to be so, which is great. So anyway, look, it's not an overly sophisticated idea at all. The Brooklyn Bridge. Is it the Brooklyn Bridge? It is the Brooklyn Bridge. That's coming into my head. I know a couple of trips to New York, I've definitely walked across that bridge a few times and enjoyed taking photographs. And again, some of these bridges are iconic from movies. And that, I'm going to go to movies. I'm going to go to movies for the last 10 minutes of this. But also, I was going to say, think about this. Wherever there's train tracks and rivers, that's where you're going to find bridges. And, close to where we live there is a train track that runs close. It crosses a couple of local rivers at different points, runs through great wooded areas, and it can be a pleasure to walk through these wooded areas, these old kind of forests, and come across a little railway bridge that you're walking under, and yeah, they're the moments I like bridges the most. Even though there's nothing particularly idealistic about that kind of bridge, it's purely functional. But again, aesthetically, there's something nice. There's something nice about walking under a bridge, and there's something nice about walking across a bridge. And I was going to fire in just quickly before I finish up with the movies. I was going to fire in a super quick anecdote where my idealism was kind of held up to me. My slightly kind of romantic way of looking at things was held up to me in a mirror. I was in France years ago, mid-90s, maybe a little bit later, 97. And myself and a friend, an old hippie friend, we were working on a building site in Paris. My brother had been living in France for a few years at that stage, and he was on a job. He was able to get us a bit of labouring work with this company that he was working for. And I remember sitting around one morning having a chat with one of the other guys who was working with us. He was French Portuguese, I think, was his background. He's passed away subsequently in a bike crash, sadly. He was quite a colourful, very friendly character. And himself and myself and my hippie pal, we were having a chat with him. And for some reason, we were talking about trees. And I was trying to find a translation for like Christmas trees or fir trees, and I was frantically sort of trying to in my my bit of French I was going toujours vert, and I was which basically I was trying to always green. I was trying to come up with a literal translation of evergreen. And so the other guy, the French Portuguese guy, was kind of looking at me sort of baffled. I mean, I had a little bit of French. I did Leaving Cert French, so it was okay. I knew I wasn't, I was able to communicate something effectively. But my hippie friend who, classic hippie, a compulsive button pusher. So not much of the pacifist in him, and that hasn't changed in 50 years. But he was there, oh, for Christ's sake. Just tell him conifers. And as soon as he said conifers, the French Portuguese guy, conifers, and got it instantly. So I was just being slagged off for evergreen. So anyway, there you go. If you can, again, I'm hoping you can see the connection. Bridges. So they bring us together. But yeah, okay. So look at bridges in the movies. Bridges in the movies for the last 10 minutes of this. I'm going to do a quick whirlwind and just talk about some movies. Bridges in movies are very often used in action sequences. Okay, and that can be really, really effective. And I'll just go with three obvious ones. Okay, and these aren't the scenes that actually really turn my cogs or rev my engine. Although there's an amazing action sequence in the border crossing bridge in Sicario. Isn't that a bridge in that where the government agents are aware that like an attack is coming from a kind of a cartel group on this bridge? It's bumper to bumper, brilliantly staged action scene from Denis Villeneuve again, who I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, the director of Blade Runner 2049. Another one that comes to mind is Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the famous rope bridge scene where he's on the rope bridge. He's got these what's that word? They're the sort of the Sikh henchmen of this cult leader who's kind of ripping out people's hearts in the heart of this mountain. And they're coming at Indy from both sides of the rope bridge over this huge ravine, at the bottom of which are vicious crocodiles or alligators, I'm not sure which. And Indy's in the middle of the bridge, and he has his little sidekick. I know he was Data in the Goonies, isn't that what was his name? I can't remember the actor's name. Korean American perhaps, but Indy's kind of little sidekick helper in the Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones decides to get out his sword, not a euphemism, and cut the bridge so they all fall. Very dramatic, and particularly if you're a kid watching that, it was like, this is high drama and incredibly fearless, heroic stuff. Great scene, very effective. Of course, you have the bridge over the River Kwai. Now that's where the whole, the story is revolving around, the building and then subsequent kind of demolition of this bridge, and the kind of the act of rebellion by POWs, and very, one of those, I suppose, like I suppose it's all a metaphor, that one, for the sort of the futility of war, building something to be destroyed, but taking pride in the building of it. Again, trying to occupy this place of neutrality and peacekeeping as a POW, but then also wanting to not facilitate the extension of the army of power, the military of power, and that, again, it's a movie. I've never actually watched the full thing. I've only ever seen kind of clips and passages of it over the years, and I've never been especially drawn to go and watch the whole thing. So anyway, you've got that thing. Another bit of an action one, or certainly high drama, high stakes bridge scene. The bridge crossing, the railway bridge crossing in Stand By Me, Rob Reiner's movie from, I don't know, 87? Is it a bit older than that even? With that young cast, the young River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Will Wheaton, and what's his name, Jerry O'Connor, as the chubby pal who just wants to go across the bridge on his hands and knees because he's so afraid. But then a train comes along and it's like, oh my God, is the train going to get them? Really well done, really well shot, very thrilling. Your young pals in danger, as we saw them, because that was sort of my age group. You're looking at them and you identified with them. And remember, Kiefer Sutherland was the bad guy in that, wasn't he? The nasty, tough local kid. We all hated him. Grrr. Kiefer turned out to be the president, didn't he? Did he become the president? Did that happen? Was he the president in something? He certainly tried to protect the president in 24. What? And then there was another one. Oh yeah, there was that other show. I didn't watch it. He became the default president because of some national crisis. Anyway, whatever. But there's loads. There'll be loads more. And as I say, they're not the scenes I'm interested in. Bridges in movies have often been seen. They've often been used for scenes, for key moments in the plot, and often nighttime, but not always. And I think very memorable. Well, certainly to me, they stick in my mind. And I'm just going to mention maybe 4 or 5 today, and then I'm going to wrap it up. So one of the first ones that occurred to me was an early scene, if not the opening scene of John Huston's The Misfits. So it's black and white, it's daytime, and it's Marilyn Monroe and Thelma Ritter. And I can't remember if Thelma Ritter has also been through the experience, but Marilyn Monroe has just finalised her divorce, and they come out to this bridge outside the civic office where they made the divorce final, and they throw their wedding rings off the bridge, which I've always enjoyed that scene anytime I've seen it, and just that sort of, the sort of devil-may-care, the sort of the liberating gesture of you throw it off a bridge. That's a very resonant, definitive gesture. The ring goes in the river, poof, and you walk away. The bridge is keeping you safe, and you're getting rid of something. You're throwing away part of your life. Lovely, love it. So The Misfits. Again, I'm struggling to remember the year. For some reason, I want to give it the same year as High Noon. Would that be right? Could they have been made in the same year? High Noon and The Misfits? I'm not sure. I think The Misfits was 50s, early 50s as well. Love that movie. And I think it probably got dogged a little bit by the story or the perception that Marilyn Monroe's the difficulty she was having and the sort of delays she was causing in the shooting because of her inability to kind of stay focused contributed to her co-star Clark Gable's end, that he wasn't in great health. It was his last movie, and I think he died at the end of shooting. And some people felt, well, the stress that Marilyn Monroe would have caused him certainly didn't help. Montgomery Clift and Eli Wallach also in that, and that great scene at the end where those divorcees have fallen in with Clark Gable and Eli Wallach, Montgomery Clift, and they're breaking stallions out on the desert in this stark black and white photography. Really great cinema, great moment in cinema. Another one I've always liked is the meeting of Sean Connery's beat cop and Kevin Costner's Elliot Ness in Brian De Palma's The Untouchables. So it's early enough in the movie. Elliot Ness has just had a humiliating defeat at the hands of the mafia. He thought he was going to expose a bootlegging operation and crack open cases of illegal whiskey, but instead it was like parasols, and he was the laughing stock of the gangsters and of the police force. And he's strolling along the bridge at night feeling sorry for himself, and has an encounter with Sean Connery's grizzled, experienced cop, who tells him how it is. And that's a nighttime scene, Chicago Bridge, and it's a key moment where Sean Connery's going, you got to do this a different way, and builds that sort of builds the audience's trust and affection for this partnership around which they'll build their crime-breaking team, and make, spoiler alert, Sean Connery's death all the more poignant later on in the film. So that's another good one. I'm going to return to Blade Runner 2049. There's a nice little bridge scene in that towards the latter part of the movie, where Brian Gosling, Ryan's brother, where Ryan Gosling is walking across a bridge in the city at night, and his pleasure model, Joy, played by Ana de Armas, I couldn't get her name right the other week, the Cuban actress, Cuban-American I guess now, but the Cuban, she's up on this huge billboard, a huge kind of hologrammatic billboard, and she reaches down from the billboard to sort of flirt with him. And it's a nice telling moment in the movie, because we're being shown the generic nature of what she is, that she's just a product. Now, we've only seen her in the personalised version in Ryan Gosling's apartment, where we build a relationship with her and enjoy vicariously his relationship with her and build our affection for her. But then later in the movie you go, oh yeah, she's just, she's like the latest iPhone, an iPhone that can reach down and tickle you under the chin. But that's also a nice movie, also at night time, and also an echo of a billboard from the earlier 1982 movie. Another bridge scene is the one from Saturday Night Fever. So a nighttime New York bridge scene. It's not the Brooklyn Bridge, it's the Verrazano something or other bridge. And one of John Travolta's crew is having a bit of a moment. He's kind of the runt of the litter, a bit nervy, a bit emotional, and he's out doing a bit of a dance on the sort of, he's jumped over the sort of side of the bridge to get onto the superstructure of the bridge, and he's way up above the river. It's nighttime. They've been in a scrap already. Everyone's a bit, revved up, and he's messing to get a bit of attention. And then there's just that moment where he kind of starts to break down, and he's having a real kind of moment of crisis. And off he goes, a sort of a slip. Maybe he wanted to go. He doesn't. He falls to his death in the river, and it's I don't know. I always forget, or I used to. I don't anymore, but I used to forget that Saturday Night Fever. It's a far kind of darker, heavier, grittier movie than one might think from seeing the promotional images of John Travolta in his white disco suit. But again, the bridge as, what does the bridge represent there? It's I don't know. Is it the bridge to highlight, wrong and right side of the tracks? Was it the bridge to show us that all of those young people were walking their own high wire of identity, of happiness, of fulfillment? In that sort of fractious 70s New York, before gentrification was a thing, where it was could be a pretty brutal place. So that's another one I like. And I'm going to end with one of my favorites, and that is the bridge scene in It's a Wonderful Life. Maybe I should save this for the Christmas episode. The bridge scene in It's a Wonderful Life, where James Stewart's character has just hit his lowest ebb, and is absolutely, flattened with his own feelings of failure and helplessness, and decides to throw himself off the bridge. It's a snowy, stormy night, snow, whirling around, and that's when heaven intervenes, and they send this kind of bumbling, failed angel, this apprentice angel who hasn't got his wings. His name is Clarence, and he's sent to point out to James Stewart, hey buddy, don't do it. Things aren't as bad as they seem, and proceeds to take James Stewart on a Christmas Carol-esque type view of his life, to go, look at what, the good stuff you've done, and let's have a look at what this place would look like if you actually went ahead and topped yourself. Brilliant. And one of Frank Capra's great moments, when he takes this, this kind of, I guess, middle American small town, which we've seen in quite a bright light, and he removes this one character, this really significant good man who's done so many good things for so selflessly for so many people. And Capra does this sequence where he goes, this is what this town would look like if you hadn't been born, or if you'd never existed. And it's just this hellish vision of, social and community collapse and the reign of venality. And it really punches hard in what many people just think, oh, it's just a sentimental movie, a sentimental Christmas movie, but it's brilliant. And that key moment of plot turn happens on the bridge, nighttime in the snow, James Stewart just absolutely in despair. But it's the kick that takes you into the kind of the salvation, and it's great. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. Okay, so there you go. I have gone a little bit longer than I thought I would, and I probably haven't mentioned some of the things I wanted to, but I did it. I crossed the bridge. I got to the far side of the podcast shore, and now here I am, safely in the area where I can press stop. So, as ever, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate you giving me your time. Really appreciate you giving me any love you can out there on social media, or just amongst your friends. Give me a recommend, send a bit of traffic my way. I would really love that. And of course, you can throw me some financial support if that's what you're feeling compelled to do, via the supporter link, which you'll find in the description, or the Patreon link. So that's patreon.com/theclearout. Okay, you take care of yourselves. Take it easy. And have a think about those bridges, or where you want to build a bridge to, and what you're trying to get over. Okay, but they're all good. Love those bridges. Okay, mind yourself. Take care. Lots of love. All the best. Bye-bye.